Hi everyone, my name is Joungmin. I'm about to read you an excerpt from Scripter written by Kim. So Scripter takes place inside an antiquated simulation game about to be discontinued by the company that maintains its server. But there's a single die-hard player still logging into it daily, and the company is contractually obligated to keep the game going as long as there's an active account. This player's real-life ID is untraceable, and because he never ever breaks character inside the simulation, the company decides to deploy an agent into the game, in character, to contact and persuade the player to quit the game on their own. Conflict arises when this player, the hunter character, refuses to comprehend the agent's proposition while stubbornly maintaining that the simulation that they inhabit is the only real world there is. And adding to the agent's frustration is a beautiful female character previously unknown to the company. And while the agent is initially convinced that she's controlled by a hacker who's been freeloading for years and years under the radar, he then begins to suspect that it might be an exquisite NPC created by the last remaining player himself in order to keep his lonely hunter character company. But soon, it is not even clear if the hunter character himself is what he purports to be. So the story spins forward as the agent struggles to unveil the identities of these in-game characters who cycle back and forth between humans pretending to be AI and AIs pretending to be humans or believing themselves to be humans. Let me just say that my mind was thoroughly boggled by the end of the story. I should also mention that the outmoded game has been hobbling along on minimal maintenance and updates, so it's plagued by serious glitches and lag issues. The graphics are breaking everywhere, NPCs malfunction and get stuck in a loop, etc., etc. Gamers can relate. Finally, the passage I'm about to read begins where the agent, the angel character, accuses the player, the hunter character, of denying that his female companion is a mere NPC, functioning more or less like a chatbot. According to our records, the angel began, the game's VIP users were provided with an NPC spawning tool capable of natural language processing and voice recognition. Using this tool, players were able to code NPCs capable of interacting with other entities based on real-time input data. It was a deceptively modest tool with endless capacity. Some consider these NPCs to be primitive AI, but I think it's a stretch to compare what they do to intelligence. All they do is spout pre-programmed responses based on pre-programmed conditions. For anything off script, they can only climb up or pretend you've lost them. You've lost me, the hunter said. The angel gave him a quick eye roll. Fine, allow me to flesh it out in your terms then. She is a homunculus. You've been an alchemist in the past, correct? My guess is that she's your creation. A moment's conversation should be enough for you to tell if that's the case or not, the hunter replied. Well, it did confuse me at first because I assumed she was a human player. And she threw me that trick question. NPCs, homunculi, don't usually ask people if they're people. You had a conversation with the girl, the hunter insisted. That wasn't a conversation, the angel scoffed. We both might as well have been talking to ourselves. She acted as if she didn't understand me when I confronted her with real-world talk. I'd have chalked it up to role-player stubbornness, but it's obvious to me now that she wasn't programmed to answer my questions. And none of her responses made any real sense anyway. In the background, an NPC was stuck in a glitch loop. His mouth kept opening and closing as he kept stepping forward, only to be jerked back to the ground again. You, sir, obviously coded a few more conversation patterns in her before shoving her in front of me. I bet she'll repeat the same exact lines to me the next time I see her. Then he traced another circle in the air and slid the papers into the hole that appeared once again. After swallowing the papers, the hole spiraled shut and vanished. So why'd you do it? Were you trying to get me to play with you or something? Have you finally grown bored of playing by yourself after all these years? I feel like I've blundered into a strange game where the rules keep shifting. Just what kind of game are you playing with me? The hunter stood wordlessly. Birds stopped chirping, and the wind returned, depositing 5 different kinds of petals and leaves on the hunter's shoulders. He smiled and drew a sword from his waist. Yet, even as the blade caught the sun, sending a shower of rays in all directions, the angel just stood there, blinking passively. The hunter raised his sword overhead. Only then did the angel realize what the hunter was aiming for. He screamed and turned to run, but his heavy wings threw him off balance and knocked him off his feet. Rudely reminded that he was no longer land-bound, the angel spread his wings and started to take off. But the hunter charged towards him at a terrible speed and plunged his sword into one of his wings, snatching him out of the air and slamming him against the ground. The sword buried itself in the earth all the way to the hilt. As the angel struggled to sit up and free himself, the hunter selected an arrow from his quiver, drew his bow, and walked around to face the angel. "Please don't," the angel whimpered. "You know it won't actually kill me. I'll just respawn at the swamp of the undead." "Then you've got nothing to fear," the hunter told him and released the arrow. It grazed the edge of one wing and plunged into the ground. The angel shrieked and flapped his wings in panic. Drawing another sword out of his scabbard with a metallic swoosh, the hunter brought its gleaming tip down to the angel's throat. "I have no desire to play with the likes of you. Stop judging me and my world by your standards, and quit corrupting this place with your language. I've tried to be nice, but I won't stand for it anymore. You start running your mouth again? Stop!" The eerie wind that had been whipping past suddenly calmed. The woman, her hair rippling behind her, rode towards them on a horned Appaloosa. The NPC was finally freed from his digital imprisonment, and it rushed over to her. "Ahoy there, brave ones! At last we meet. May the Lord bless you." Lowering his weapon, the hunter turned to the woman. "But he insulted you," he protested. "Treating him like this doesn't bode well for this world," she replied. "No matter how I treat him, the fate of this world isn't going to change." "You're wrong. I still believe there's hope." The angel watched their exchange intently. The woman jumped off the horse and walked towards the angel, uttering a series of incantations at the sword buried in his wing. Obeying her command, the sword flew into the air and back into the scabbard at the hunter's side. Her words transformed into a beam of light and filled the angel's wound. In a blink, the gaping hole closed without a trace. The angel shot her a withering look. "How'd you do that?" he hissed. "I healed it," she told him. "Ha! How are you even talking to me? Are you playing a double role? Yes, you're controlling two characters simultaneously, aren't you?" "Pardon me?" she said, uncomprehending. "Who the hell are you?" "What do you mean by that?"